It's Wednesday, February 25th. I'm talking to Stephen Hazell, Executive Director of the Sierra Club of Canada. We're talking about some of the surprises that have appeared in the federal budget upon further examination, and I think one of the ones that has concerned environmentalists is changes to the Navigable Waters Protection Act. Can you tell me, Stephen, what some of these changes are that are proposed?
Well, I mean, what the government is proposing to do is basically to gut the Navigable Waters Protection Act and basically throw the legal requirements overboard. This legislation is intended to ensure that any dam or bridge or other obstruction to navigation is assessed for its environmental effects before it's approved. So with the amendments that were cunningly included in the budget implementation bill, unfairly, improperly in our view, but with these changes, what we're going to see is that the minister will have almost complete discretion as to whether or not a permitting process will be applied to a dam or a bridge, and whether or not an environmental assessment of the adverse effects of that dam or bridge will be required to be undertaken.
This is a pretty major change, I think, for how we treat our waterways. It's going to affect people in a number of different ways. What are some of the effects it will have?
Well, I think some of the main things are, well, that if a developer, say, wants to put a bridge, say across the Ottawa River, for example, there's a proposal right now to put a bridge across the Ottawa River. John Baird, if he wishes, could decide that no environmental assessment is needed for that bridge. With a stroke of his pen, he could decide that. With respect to, I mean, it will affect the paddling community quite a bit, because we're likely to see a lot of smaller projects being built that restrict navigation by paddlers in smaller rivers and streams and lakes. So so there's a number of ways that it'll affect people. It'll certainly affect the environment when you get these projects being built without any analysis of whether or not they're affecting bird populations or water quality or other environmental factors.
What is the government's rationale for making these changes, and how do you respond to that rationale? Well,
the government says that the Navigable Waters Protection Act and environmental assessments in general basically they're clogging up the system. They're delaying the implementation of their shovel-ready projects, and they want to get on with helping the economy and that sort of thing. This is really a smokescreen. There are very few projects that are being held up because of environmental assessments. Projects are mainly being held up because John Baird, as infrastructure minister, has been very slow in getting money out the door to project developers and municipalities that need the money to go forward. That's the real delay, but he's using the convenient cover of environmental bureaucracy as a way to pursue the government's agenda to deregulate Canada for the environment.
Critics of an environmental agenda will talk about the environmental assessment process as being terribly cumbersome and delaying projects, they'll say, for years. Is that typically the case?
No, it's not. I mean, 99% of federal environmental assessments are what are called screenings, and those screenings are done in a matter of weeks. So they really don't provide, they don't delay things at all. It is true that with bigger projects, the Mackenzie Gas project, for example, a $16 billion project, there is a panel review happening there with public hearings, and yes, that has taken some years to get through, but it is a huge project that will completely transform the North. So in my view, the delays can be justified in that case.
One last question. I understand that you appeared at a parliamentary committee this week to make the case for not making these changes to the Act. And I understand as well that the committee basically rejected your advice and is putting the bill forward in its existing original form. Why do you think they're so locked in here?
Well, I think it's, the Conservatives want to get the bill through. The most interesting thing is the Liberals. We had hoped that the Liberals would decide that these changes to the Navigable Waters Protection Act should not be part of the budget implement bill and excise those amendments. They decided not to do that. The Liberals bought the government's line that we need to have these changes in order to get our shovel-ready projects into the ground. Now, so we think that's wrong. I think really what's going on is that the Liberals have decided that they don't want to force an election at this time, so they're basically going along with the government on these key votes, which would have been confidence votes.
And I guess once this change has been made, it'll be irrevocable?
Well, it certainly, for the time being, it will be. I think that the environmental community, and I suspect we will be soon joined by First Nations and other Aboriginal peoples. Certainly the angler and hunter community is starting to come on side because they see how this is going to adversely affect outdoor recreation activities. I think that we will be making it a priority with the next government, which may not be a Conservative government. Whichever party forms the next government, we will be pushing hard to get these changes reversed.